What's going on, y'all? One thing that really irks me is when people assume that there's no evidence for a creator. The order and the design of the cosmos, the complexity of even single-celled organisms points to a designer, an intelligent mind that created even like the DNA code, who wrote the DNA code for every living thing. There's tons of evidence for a creator, but even more so, there is historical evidence that Jesus Christ actually rose from the grave. It's not looking great. That historical evidence, people will put on the wayside. They'll ignore it. They will claim that it's not relevant because, for the simple fact that the people who say this often have a presupposition that miracles cannot occur. But if a creator does exist, which the complexity of life is pointing to, then logically, miracles can occur. There can be supernatural events that take place when God so wills it to happen. So the fact that Jesus rose from the grave isn't all that outlandish in context of there being a creator. The reason that it's so convincing to so many people, though, is because of the only other options that there could be. Pretty much all of New Testament scholarship will say that Jesus indeed was executed on a cross. Almost all of New Testament scholarship will say indeed the grave was empty. But if the scholars do not believe that miracles can occur, and they have presupposition that a God does not exist, then often scholars will reach the conclusion that either the disciples were liars or they hallucinated. They were all kind of going crazy after they lost their Savior. Their Savior was executed, and they kind of just fabricated up this story in their own heads. They all hallucinated the same thing. So the fact that these are the only two options left to interpret this text, to try to find out what actually happened, those two options are just ridiculous, actually. And I don't know why some scholars hold to them. It doesn't make any sense to me. But it also doesn't make sense in psychology. People do not lie and then go to their execution for what they know to be a lie. And then also, people do not have mass hallucinations. Now, that being said, I don't know why people want to argue away Jesus so quickly. People are so quick to try to deal with the resurrection and claim that it didn't occur. What is so bad about Jesus that you don't want what happened to have happened? Jesus claimed to be God in the flesh, and he was the best person that ever lived. He was the greatest. He healed thousands of people. He showed God's unconditional love. He did more than that, though. Called out religious hypocrisy, created a foundation of ethics that allows for equality between women and men and rights for children. He protected children. He did all these wonderful things, and people want to argue away the possibility that he actually is who he claimed to be. It's just ridiculous, folks. But I want you all to look into the evidence for the resurrection if you haven't yet. Check it out, see that he actually did rise from the grave, which validates his claim. If he can predict his own resurrection, that validates a lot of what he said, pretty much everything he said during his life. He's in touch with reality. He knows what's going on if he can predict his own resurrection. Stay blessed, y'all. God really loves you. He showed that in the life of Jesus.